Chapter 404. When I woke up, my entire body was sore and swollen. I couldn't even open my eyes. I had tried my best, but I could only open them a little bit. Through this little bit, I could see the darkness around me. I felt a little relieved. It didn't matter if it was day or night in the energy passage of the corpse sect. If the celestial master of Mount Longhu had caught up with me, he wouldn't stay in a dark place. From this, the plan I had with the little zombie had worked. The people of the celestial master sect hadn't caught me yet. At this moment, my body was still very tired. After relaxing a little bit, I couldn't stand it anymore and fell asleep. I didn't know how long I had slept. When I regained consciousness, I opened my eyes. However, as soon as I opened my eyes, I found that my body was moving. Moreover, someone was dragging me on the ground. I was scared and woke up. I struggled to get up. However, as soon as I moved, I heard the voice of the evil sacrificial spirit not far from me. "You're seriously injured. Don't move." After hearing his voice, I calmed down and didn't move. I turned my head to look around and found that the little zombie was dragging me forward. Moreover, in the darkness, I could vaguely tell that I was in the energy passage of the corpse sect. I could finally relax. It seemed the people of the celestial master sect hadn't captured me. The little zombie had woken up first and was taking me to the depths of the energy passage. The evil sacrificial spirit was right. My body wasn't in a good condition. I simply let him drag me forward. At the same time, I asked him, "How are you? Can you absorb the energy in this place?" The evil sacrificial spirit answered in a muffled voice, "I can absorb it, but the quality of the energy here isn't good enough. I can feel that the energy ahead of us is even thicker. Moreover, you have the blood marks on your body. It's not safe to stay at the entrance of the cave. That's why I'm dragging you forward." His deduction was correct. I had walked through this passage from the beginning to the end. Of course, I knew that the quality of the energy was thicker the further I went. Moreover, the energy here was divided into 4 levels: heaven, earth black, and yellow. The chi around the Tai Sui's corpse in the innermost area was heaven-level chi, and its power was the most terrifying. If the sacrificial evil spirit absorbed that chi, its recovery speed would definitely be the fastest. I told the evil sacrificial spirit what I knew. After listening to me, he nodded. "I remember something. But the Tai Sui you mentioned, is it a living Tai Sui?" His question surprised me. A living Tai Sui. Regarding the Tai Sui, when I first met Goldie and the corpse of heavenly law in the passage, I didn't know anything about it. Later on, I understood the nature of the competition between witchcraft and witchcraft. After I learned about the ancient legends, I had a new understanding of the Tai Sui. I roughly understood the nature of the power at the beginning of time. However, there is one question that I am still confused about, and that is the question that the evil spirit is asking. Living Tai Sui and dead Tai Sui. At first, I thought that Little Gold was the only living Tai Sui, and the rest were just the corpses of dead Tai Sui. I was pretty sure about this, and what I saw and heard basically matched my speculation. However, there was one Tai Sui that I wasn't sure about. It was the corpse of the corpse insects Tai Sui. The first time I saw it, Yen Nantian told me that it was the corpse of heavenly law. The meaning of the word heavenly law was too broad. I didn't know what Yen Nantian meant by heavenly law. However, no matter what, it proved that it was just a corpse. Moreover, from the purple plants that covered its body and the chi that it emitted, it was indeed the corpse of the Tai Sui. But strangely, after I helped Yen Nantian obtain the so-called heavenly Tao blood from his body, that enormous and terrifying corpse actually moved and even attacked the two of us. At that time, I didn't think much about it. I thought that it was just because the corpse of heavenly law was magical. But now, it proved that the Tai Sui wasn't a corpse, but a living creature. The people of the corpse insect had used some secret technique to imprison it. They had taken its energy and turned it into yin qi for the corpse insect to absorb. Of course, it was just my speculation. I didn't know the details yet. However, if my speculation was correct, how terrifying would this living Tai Sui be? The Tai Sui was the power of primal chaos. It was a strange life form that was projected to the world of mortals. From the power that little Gold had when he transformed, I could tell how strong a living Tai Sui was. I originally planned to come back to the corpse sect, and now that I'm here, I've fulfilled my wish. Of course, my purpose here was just to explore the secrets of the Tai Sui. I didn't have much ambition, and I didn't expect to keep the Tai Sui with me like I did with little Gold. After thinking about it for a while, I told the evil sacrificial spirit, I don't know if this Tai Sui is a living creature or not. However, the last time I saw it, I cooperated with another person to take a drop of blood from the Tai Sui. According to that person, the Tai Sui's blood was the blood of heavenly law. After taking a drop of blood, the Tai Sui seemed to come to life and attacked me and that person. However, the Tai Sui seemed to be bound by something and didn't hurt us. After I escaped, I never saw the Tai Sui again. Just as I said that, the evil sacrificial spirit's footsteps suddenly stopped. He cried out in surprise, Heaven's blood! Where is that drop of blood now? Is it on you? His action stunned me. I hurriedly shook my head and immediately replied, It's not on me. After I took it off, that person took it away. You've met that person before. He's the one who helped me escape from you at the man-made dragon vein. That young god, celestial master? Yes, I nodded, and then curiously asked, What is the blood of heavenly law? Is it very important? The impatient expression on the evil sacrificial spirit's face eased a little. He shook his head and said, It's not important, but it's very helpful to you. If you have the chance to see that person again, you must find a way to get the whereabouts of the blood of heavenly law from him. I felt strange and asked, He took the blood of heavenly law from the previous Tai Sui. If that thing is really powerful, why don't we take another drop from that Tai Sui? The evil sacrificial spirit shook his head again. Each Tai Sui only has one drop of the blood of heavenly law. It's impossible to take a second drop. I felt even more strange. I wanted to ask more, but the evil sacrificial spirit's face suddenly changed. He raised his hand and interrupted me. I didn't have time to react. Soon, the evil sacrificial spirit lowered his voice and frowned. Those people are really persistent. I think the yin energy in this place isn't strong enough to suppress the blood mark on your body. Wait until my cultivation base recovers a little bit. Then, I will be able to help you cover it. At that time, those people won't be able to find you. It turned out that the people from the Celestial Master sect had chased after me again. My mind that had calmed down was stirred up again. I didn't even have time to feel resentful when I was running for my life. But now that I recalled how I had risked my life to escape, I couldn't suppress the resentment in my heart anymore. If the Liu family wanted to kill me, it wouldn't have mattered. The Liu family and I had an irreconcilable grudge. The Liu family had killed my parents, and I had killed Liu Xiang. We wouldn't stop until one of us was dead. No matter who killed the other, I couldn't say anything. However, the people from Dragon Tiger Mountain were different. I had no grudge against them, but they didn't distinguish right from wrong. They accused me of killing the Celestial Masters. No matter how hard I tried to explain, They didn't believe me. They even wanted to find the whereabouts of the mysterious woman, just because my cultivation wasn't high and I didn't have a strong background. Did they want to bully me? Chapter 405. No matter how angry I was, I wouldn't be able to harm a single hair on the enemy. So I quickly retracted my thoughts and adjusted my breathing to calm myself down. Then I closed my eyes to meditate. I first looked inside. My meridian of the heaven was empty, and there was only a sliver of shaman energy. Even the shaman energy source stone at the bottom of the meridian of the heaven had shrunk by half. It didn't look as magical as it did when it was filled with shaman energy. Not only was my shaman energy like that, there was no Tao energy left in my meridian of the heaven. My situation was only slightly better than when Lu Xening destroyed my meridians. It was extremely bad. Putting aside the fact that my aura was so weak, the source of my pain was the numerous small wounds on my chest. These wounds were caused by me activating the shaman energy in my body. I didn't feel much when I had shaman energy protecting me, but now that I lost the protection of shaman energy, I felt an unbearable pain. It was fine if it was just some pain, but what was more unbearable was my hair. After checking my body, I plucked out a few strands of my hair and looked closely. All the ends of my hair had turned half a centimeter white. Of course, I didn't dye my hair, and it wasn't because I was sick that my hair turned white. It was because the method of injuring myself and squeezing out the power in my body was actually a method of using up my health. It was similar to Taoist jade blood talisman, using lifespan in exchange for temporary power. There was an obvious sign of using up lifespan in a short period of time, which was the end of my hair turning white. From the length of the hair turning white, I could roughly estimate how much lifespan I had used. The half a centimeter length meant that I had used up 3 years of my lifespan. Using up lifespan didn't mean that a person's lifespan would be shortened by a few years, but it meant that a person would instantly age by a few years. Just like how I was now, my true age was only 25, but adding on the 3 years of lifespan that I had used, I was actually 28. My appearance will become that of a 28-year-old. Every organ in my body, including the age of my bones, will become that of a 28-year-old. This change didn't seem huge. To a normal person, as long as they didn't age 10 years in an instant, the change wasn't huge. But to cultivators, the change in age meant the change in talent. Entering glory of knowledge at 20 and glory of knowledge at 23 were two completely different concepts. The former had hopes of becoming a heavenly master, while the latter would almost certainly remain at the early stage of glory of consciousness for the rest of his life. It's the same for me. Reaching glorious consciousness great perfection at 25 and glorious consciousness great perfection at 28 are completely different. Based on my rough estimation, the chances of me successfully advancing to the heavenly mentor realm will drop by at least 30% after this consumption of my lifespan. I hated Mount Longhu even more. However, I didn't make any empty vow this time. I just kept it in my heart and continued to cultivate. In the withered veins of the sky, the speed at which the shaman energy gathered was extremely slow. In the first hour, I couldn't even gather a single strand of shaman energy. Later on, the evil sacrificial spirit dragged me to the corpse sex purple zombie cave. The purple zombie cave was the cave where the glorious consciousness realm cultivators lived. The yin energy in the passageway that connected to the yin energy was at the Xian level, close to the earth level. Of course, the yin energy didn't have any effect on me. However, since this place wasn't far from the Tai Sui, the yin energy also had some of the Tai Sui's original power. After I absorbed it, I converted it into a large amount of shaman energy. After my shaman energy recovered, The pain in my body wasn't a big problem. I quickly suppressed the pain and got rid of the little zombie's hand. I got up from the ground. Although I didn't have enough strength, I could limp and follow the little zombie. We walked for a while. Since the evil sacrificial spirit was moving fast, I couldn't help but remind him to slow down. It wasn't because I couldn't keep up with his speed. It was because we were in the purple zombie caves area. The caves of the glorious consciousness realm cultivators were just a wall away from us. Although there was a large amount of Yin energy in the passageway to cover us, we could still be exposed if we weren't careful. After listening to me, the evil sacrificial spirit slowed down. He told me that he wanted to absorb Yin energy while walking. I should pay attention to the surroundings and wake him up if something happened. I was curious about his ability to cultivate and walk at the same time. I wanted to ask him about it, but it wasn't a good time to do so. I nodded and agreed. The purple zombie cave wasn't small. Since we were walking slowly, it took us around 1 hour to reach the border between the purple zombie cave and the flying zombie cave. The flying zombie cave of the corpse sect was occupied by a heavenly master realm expert. His power couldn't be underestimated. If we weren't careful, we could be discovered. I immediately woke up the evil sacrificial spirit and told him about the situation here. We should rest here. The evil sacrificial spirit didn't say anything. He closed his eyes to sense the Yin energy around us. Then he nodded. Although the quality of the Yin energy here isn't high, it's enough. Let's stay here. Then he walked a few steps forward and chose a place to sit cross-legged. He then continued to absorb Yin energy. I looked at the place where he was sitting. Chapter 406. Instantly, the negative emotions in my heart burst out again. My heart, which had just calmed down, was now filled with negative emotions. I thought that since Mount Longhu had colluded with the corpse sect, it was only a matter of time before they found us. At that time, it would be impossible to find a safe place to hide. With this thought, my eyes turned red. I turned to the evil sacrificial spirit and said, "If they've chased us all the way here, I'm afraid we won't be able to survive. Now that you've recovered a little bit of your strength, how about we hide behind the flying zombie cave and find a chance to break the wall, to fight them? No matter what the result is, it's better than staying here and waiting for death." After listening to me, the evil sacrificial spirit frowned and didn't answer me. Instead, he reached out his hand and touched my forehead. I wanted to ask what he had done to me, but I immediately felt a cool aura pour down from the top of my head. The heat in my body dissipated, and the negative emotions in my head weren't as strong as before. The evil sacrificial spirit answered me, "Don't worry. The Yin energy here is very strong, and the Tai Sui is here. It must be a secret place. Those people won't be able to come here to search for us. Moreover, even if they come here, we just need to move forward. The Yin energy here is even stronger. Moreover, the terrain of this passage is very complicated. It won't be hard to avoid them. I know you've been running for your life, and you're restless. However, you shouldn't give up on yourself until you're in a desperate situation." His tone was calm, and his words didn't sound like he was lecturing me. Instead, it sounded like he was advising me gently. However, I was still shocked when I heard that. Then, I realized that I was indeed panicking earlier. It wasn't just because I was exhausted from running all the way, but also because I had just escaped with my life. Before I could relax, the enemy had chased me to my doorstep. This kind of stress was related to one's temperament. If I could say something like that, it meant that my temperament was still not good enough. No wonder I couldn't feel that I had a chance to enter the heavenly master realm. Not to mention anything else, my temperament wasn't good enough. I didn't say anything else and just nodded at the evil sacrificial spirit. I agreed with his opinion. Seeing that I had recovered my senses, the evil sacrificial spirit said, I can only sense their aura, but I can't hear their conversation. How about we sneak in and see what they're talking about? We'll decide what to do next. His suggestion wasn't a problem, so I didn't say anything else. I nodded and carefully followed the evil sacrificial spirit into the flying zombie cave. This was the place where I had found the little zombie. Perhaps the evil sacrificial spirit had found something in the little zombie's memory. He was very familiar with this place. Sure enough, after he finished speaking, the old man's expression didn't change, and he indifferently replied, Brother Sue, don't use Heavenly Master Zhang to pressure me. You might be right that the person you said is important to your Mount Longhu, but the secret location of our Een Corp sect is also more important than my life. I'll still say the same thing. I can help you search, but the people from your Mount Longhu can only sit here and wait for the result. You can't participate. If your Mount Longhu isn't willing, then there's no need to threaten me. It's better to go back and find Heavenly Master Zhang. Heavenly Master Zhang's magic power is boundless, but the ancestor of our Een Corp sect isn't someone just anyone can provoke. His words startled me, although I already knew that the Een Corp sect was very large and powerful. I didn't think that this old man wouldn't care about the threat of Mount Longhu. He didn't want to suffer any losses, and from his words, it seemed that he didn't even put Heavenly Master Zhang in his eyes. To the people of Mount Longhu, Heavenly Master Zhang was not only a leader, but also a spiritual pillar. How could they allow the old man to blaspheme him? I originally thought that the fat, great Heavenly Master would go crazy with anger, but after hearing the old man's words, the fat, great Heavenly Master didn't show any signs of anger. He didn't even wave his sleeves and leave. Instead, he smiled and said, Brother Yuan is right. I was rude just now. It's not that I don't respect the Corp's Een sect. It's just that that person is very important. I was too anxious and spoke without thinking, so I apologize to Brother Yuan. Also, I have complete trust in Brother Yuan, so let's do as you suggested. My two junior brothers, and I will stay here and wait for the result. I'll leave everything to Brother Yuan. The people of Mount Longhu were actually afraid. This was completely different from the tyrannical people of Mount Longhu in my mind. I understood that it wasn't because the people of Mount Longhu had changed, but because the Een Corp sect was a hard bone that they couldn't chew. The two of them reached an agreement. Then the old man said that he was going to notify the others to search the place. Then he left the flying zombie cave. After the old man left, the faces of the three heavenly masters of Mount Longhu darkened. They whispered to each other for a long time. I couldn't hear them clearly from outside the wall, but I understood what they were talking about. They were complaining and discussing what to do next. In the end, the result of their discussion was the same as what they had just said. They had to go back and report to Heavenly Master Zhang. Moreover, from what they had said, it seemed that Heavenly Master Zhang didn't have any way to deal with the Een Corp sect. Unless the Een Corp sect found the person and handed him over, this matter would be left unsettled. After listening to their discussion, the evil sacrificial spirit told me that someone had entered the Een energy passage. He asked me to go with him and hide. He had really gotten the little zombie's memory of this place. He casually found a concave crevice and led me into it. Then he found some gravel and slowly blocked the entrance. The Een energy in this stone crevice was much thicker than other places. Moreover, with the surrounding stones, even if several heavenly masters came, they wouldn't be able to find us. After ensuring our safety, I stood in the stone crevice and recalled the conversation between the three heavenly masters of Mount Longhu and the old man of the Een Corp sect. An idea popped up in my head. Mount Longhu was a terrifying force that couldn't be provoked in the entire metaphysics world. It wasn't safe for me to go somewhere else. If the Een Corpse sect could resist them, it would be better for me to stay in the Corpse sect for the time being. However, staying in this Een energy passage forever wasn't a solution. Sooner or later, the core members of the Een Corpse sect would come here to check. If they found us, it would be too late. Chapter 407. Last time, when Yen Nantian and I took the Heavenly Path's blood, the Corpse sect was plunged into chaos. After I left, the fake Wei Sampung also disappeared. Although I didn't know if the Corpse sect had found out that Wei Sampung was the one who had triggered the Tai Sui's rebellion, at least they knew that something was wrong with him. That was why I couldn't use Wei Sampung's identity this time. However, if I didn't pretend to be Wei Sampung, how could I sneak in? While I was thinking about this problem, the evil sacrificial spirit next to me suddenly reached out his hand and touched my arm. I turned around and was about to ask him what he was doing. However, the evil sacrificial spirit gestured at me to keep quiet. Then he pointed outside the passage. I immediately got it. The people of the Corpse sect had just entered the passage. The Een energy in the passage was thick enough to cover our auras. However, I was still a little nervous. I took a few deep breaths and tried my best to make my breathing long and even. The thick Een energy not only covered our auras, but it also hindered our spiritual senses. After around 5 minutes, I heard footsteps not far from us. I didn't know how the evil sacrificial spirit had sensed them that early. The people of the Corpse sect walked very slowly. I guessed that they were carefully searching every corner of the passage. Soon, someone arrived at the stone crack. According to my original calculations, with so many stones blocking the outside of the stone crack, the people searching the crack wouldn't be able to move the stones bit by bit. However, the truth was beyond my expectations. As soon as the people searching the crack arrived, they started to move the stones. This time, I was a little scared. Although the Een energy here was thick, it could only cover our auras. It couldn't block people's sight. As long as those stones were moved, the evil sacrificial spirit and I would be exposed. What should I do now? Before I could come up with an idea, the person outside had moved half of the stones away, revealing a small crack. I was startled and wanted to shrink my body. However, the evil sacrificial spirit pulled my arm and signaled me not to move. Then he slowly raised his other hand and raised his index and middle fingers. He twirled his fingers twice in the air. Then I saw the Een energy in the stone crack move. The Een chi seemed to be controlled by an invisible force, and all of it gathered at the entrance of the stone crevice, causing the Een chi there to instantly become extremely dense. In fact, its power was not inferior to that of heaven-grade Een chi. At the same time, due to the concentrated Een energy, the air there had turned gray and black, completely blocking our figures. Normally, it would be easy for someone to sense Een chi under the nose of the Corpse sex people. However, after the evil spirit finished, there was no movement outside at all. They could only vaguely see a person sticking his head into the crack for a while, and then retracting his head. Soon, the sound of footsteps could be heard. It was clear that the person had left. Only then did I heave a sigh of relief. I slightly moved my body that was stiff from nervousness. After that person left, a voice came from not far away, as if he was asking someone for instructions. "Sect Master, should we continue searching?" Soon after, an old voice answered, "No need. This place is the ancestor's cultivation area. We shouldn't disturb him. If someone intrudes into the forbidden area, the ancestor will be there. We don't need to worry about him." This voice sounded familiar. It should be the voice of the skinny old man. I didn't expect that he was the sect master of the Corpse sect, No wonder the fat, great heavenly master from Mount Longhu was so polite to him. As soon as he said that, the person who asked the question seemed to have a different opinion from him. He immediately said, "But last time someone intruded, right? If this time—" Before he could finish his sentence, the skinny old man interrupted him and scolded, "Last time it was that traitor Yen Nantian. He knew the date of the ancestors' hibernation, so he intruded. This time, it's not the same as the ancestors' hibernation. All right, let's stop here. We've carefully searched this place, and we've answered to Mount Longhu. Our corpse sect doesn't need to disturb the ancestor for such a small matter. Let's go back." Not long after he said that, a series of footsteps could be heard. It was clear that those people had collectively left. To be safe, the evil sacrificial spirit, and I didn't hurry to go out. We stayed here and quietly waited. During this time, I thought about what that person said and was a bit surprised. The old ancestor that he was talking about was in the huge stone chamber in front. Last time, Yen Nantian, and I intruded because the ancestor was sleeping, but it was just a coincidence that I came to the corpse sect last time. Yen Nantian had lived here for dozens of years as a young god. When I arrived, the ancestor was hibernating, which allowed Yen Nantian to get what he wanted. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? Could it be that this is also a conspiracy designed by someone else? However, I carefully recalled what happened that year. From the time I found my parents' corpses to the time I came here, everything was an accident. It was impossible for anyone to have planned this. In the end, I could only conclude that it was a coincidence. After pondering for a few minutes, I didn't hear anything outside, the evil sacrificial spirit, and I was sure that there was no more danger outside. Then we got out of the stone room. The people from the corpse sect had indeed left. Moreover, they had just come to inspect the area, so they shouldn't be coming back for a short period of time. I let out a long sigh of relief. No matter what, I was temporarily safe. After confirming that I was safe, we needed to consider the next step. The evil sacrificial spirit stood next to me and didn't say anything. I thought for a while and asked, "Can you estimate how long it will take for me to recover my strength with the Yin energy here?" The evil sacrificial spirit pondered for a while and then shook his head. "The Yin energy here isn't enough. I have to move forward to recover my strength to the heavenly master level. As for whether I can recover my full cultivation base or not, it's hard to say. I need to see the Yin energy in front of us. If the Yin energy in front of us can meet my needs, I will fully recover in half a month." His answer was the same as before. At that time, I was optimistic and thought that he only needed to rest for a few days to recover his cultivation base. Then he would be able to take me out. But now, it seemed that I was too naive. The evil sacrificial spirit's requirement for Yin energy was too high. He needed heaven-level Yin energy to recover to the heavenly master level. Even so, I thought that I could take him to the heaven-level Yin energy area ahead to absorb it. However, after listening to the corpse sect master's words, I didn't dare to move forward. From his words, I could tell that the so-called ancestor was an expert at the same level as Zhang Tianshi. If the evil sacrificial spirit was at his peak, I wasn't sure if he could defeat him. If we went in now and alerted the ancestor, we wouldn't have the power to fight back. Moreover, even if we were lucky and didn't alert the ancestor, the evil sacrificial spirit would recover his strength. However, if Celestial Master Zhang of Longhu Mountain came to find me after we left the corpse sect, it would be hard to tell who was stronger between the evil sacrificial spirit and Celestial Master Zhang. It seemed that there was only one way left, and that was to sneak into the corpse sect. I had already thought it through. If I wanted to sneak into the corpse sect, I couldn't use Wei Somping's identity anymore. I had to think of another way. I pondered for a while and soon had an idea. I couldn't use Wei Somping's identity anymore, but I could use the method I had used last time. I couldn't sneak in with my current appearance. After my identity as a witch had been exposed, I had become a wanted criminal in the entire metaphysics world. Perhaps the people of the corpse sect also knew my appearance. The risk of being discovered was too big. Fortunately, Bayan had given me the e-ink bead, which could completely change my appearance. I just needed to use the e-ink bead to change my appearance, and then find a disciple of the corpse sect who looked like me. Then I would use the method I had used last time. After making up my mind, I told the evil sacrificial spirit my plan. Of course, he didn't care and nodded. Let me think about it. Chapter 408. Although the corpse sect wasn't famous, they had a lot of disciples. Just the purple zombie cave alone had dozens of caves of various sizes. This meant that the corpse sect had dozens of disciples at the glory of knowledge realm. I didn't know how strong they were compared to the other great powers, but at least they were stronger than the Metaphysics Society. Since the people of the corpse sect were always immersed in their crazy cultivation, the caves weren't empty. Almost all of the disciples stayed inside to cultivate. However, after a brief look, I gave up on this place and continued to move toward the black zombie cave. The reason I gave up on this place was because there weren't many people that looked like me. Also, the people in the purple zombie cave were all glory of knowledge realm cultivators. Their status in the corpse sect wasn't low, and they were involved in many things. If I impersonated them, it would be easy for me to be exposed. When I reached the black zombie cave, it was much larger. There were nearly 300 caves, and from the beginning to the end, there were also more than 200 disciples cultivating. Among these people, I found two that looked similar to me. However, I wasn't in a hurry to choose them and continued to move toward the white zombie cave. The white corpse cave also had around 300 caves. However, each cave had 4 people living in it. Along the way, I found 3 or 4 people that I could impersonate. After memorizing the locations of the rooms, I decided to find the people in the black zombie cave. The people in the purple zombie cave had a high status, while the white zombie cave had too many people. If there were 4 people living in one room, it would be hard for me to keep any secrets. After making up my mind, I returned to the purple zombie cave area and found the cave of the person that looked the most like me. I sat cross-legged on the side of the wall and waited for the shaman energy in my body to recover. Then I used the astral step and activated the shaman energy in my body to create a hole in the wall that was full of small holes. When I was still in the pressure point realm, it took me several days to open this hard wall. But now my cultivation was different, so I only needed a few seconds to do it. As soon as the hole was opened, I urged my body to enter the room through the small hole. At this moment, a young man around my age was sitting cross-legged not far from the Yin energy passage. He seemed to be immersed in his cultivation. I had just woken him up, and he looked at me in a daze. He didn't react at all. I didn't dare to be careless. As soon as I got out of the room, I threw a scarlet talisman of shaman energy at him. The man didn't react at all. A massive golden light enveloped him, preventing him from moving. At the same time, the sacrificial evil spirit that I had instructed earlier immediately controlled the corpse puppet that was sitting at the side. After subduing him, with one move, I didn't want to talk to him. I controlled the golden light talisman and squeezed his eyes. Shortly after, he stopped breathing. Only then did I walk over and use the soul-searching technique on him before his soul left his body. This was the second time I had used this soul-searching method. It was similar to the method I had used to search for Wei Sampam. Soon, I saw the life of this young man in front of me. From his memories, I learned that his name was Wang Lin. Unlike Wei Sanpeng, who grew up in the corpse sect, Wang Lin grew up outside. He was a child beggar. The corpse sect would periodically collect some homeless orphans from the outside to fill up the sect's population. Most of them would only be taught some basic yin refining techniques so that they could reach the dragon-seeking realm. Then they would stay in the White Zombie Cave as low-level disciples and servants. The rest of the people who had a certain amount of talent were given all the cultivation methods. In the beginning, they stayed in the White Zombie Cave, but they were treated as real disciples. Once their cultivation increased, they would gradually be promoted to other caves. After reading this, I felt lucky that I had chosen someone from the Black Zombie Cave. Otherwise, if I chose someone from the White Zombie Cave, not only would I have to be on guard against the people in the same cave, but I would also have to do odd jobs every day. It would be a waste of time. In addition to this, I also saw the general structure of the corpse sect from Wang Lin's memories. Previously, I knew that the Corpsine sect had 4 caves and 8 halls. At first, I thought that the Flying Zombie Cave, the Purple Zombie Cave, the Black Zombie Cave, and the White Zombie Cave each had 2 halls. However, after looking through his memories, I found out that the Flying Zombie Cave was actually a transcendent sect and didn't have any other organizations. The Purple Zombie Cave below it had 2 organizations, the Upper Hall and the Lower Hall. The Black Zombie Cave and White Zombie Cave each had an upper, middle, and lower temple. They were also divided according to talent. This Wang Lin was from the middle temple of the Black Zombie Cave. Also, from the division, the Wei Sanpeng that I had impersonated was also from the middle temple of the Black Zombie Cave. His memories also contained information about the corpse sect's middle temple master and the corpse sect's elder in charge of the Black Zombie Cave. Besides these sect matters, there were very few memories about this person. Most of it was just boring cultivation. After looking at the memories, I grinned. The people of the corpse sect were really too good at impersonating. They all cultivated like crazy every day and rarely talked to each other. The elders and hall masters who were in charge of the disciples didn't show up often either. As long as I had the same face and didn't show any signs of my cultivation, it would be very hard to find any flaws. After confirming that I had obtained all of his memories, I flicked my finger and a yang flame talisman flew toward the corpse sect disciple named Wang Lin. Soon, he turned to ashes and disappeared from this world. Next, I was worried that the yang energy in the talisman would be discovered by someone else, so I threw Wang Lin's ashes into the yin energy tunnel. I even had the evil spirit lead the yin energy into the cave to completely remove all traces of yang energy. Then I found some gravel from the tunnel and added some water to make sand to fix the hole I had made in the wall. At first, the hardness of the sand couldn't resist the yin energy in the tunnel. I used the shaman energy in my body to temporarily protect this part of the wall. After a few hours, the sand would harden and adapt to the yin energy. Then it would be fine. After taking care of all of these trivial matters, the next thing I had to deal with was Wang Lin's corpse puppet. If I wanted to gain a foothold in the corpse sect, I couldn't do it without a corpse puppet. Last time, when I impersonated Wei Sanpeng, I used his corpse and his pupil to barely get past him. This time, because I had enough time to prepare, I didn't want to use that method. Although it was convenient if I met someone with a high cultivation level, they could easily see through me and I might be in danger. Of course, I didn't want to directly use Wang Lin's corpse puppet. I had seen the corpse sect's cultivation method and knew that corpse puppets never had 2 masters. It was impossible to directly control them. So I decided to let the evil spirit, which was the little zombie, pretend to be my corpse puppet. The little zombie was originally a corpse demon, which was the best material for refining corpse puppets. It was also controlled by the evil spirit, so no one would doubt me if I said it was a corpse puppet. The only problem was that the little zombie didn't look the same as Wang Lin's corpse puppet, and the difference was big. If I brought it out, people would definitely notice something was wrong. However, I didn't need to think too much about this. I asked the evil spirit, and he said he had a way to make the little zombie look exactly like Wang Lin's corpse puppet. The evil spirit's cultivation level was very high, so he wouldn't lie to me. He kept Wang Lin's corpse puppet and used his finger to cut open the corpse puppet's chest. He used the black blood to draw a complicated pattern on his body. Then he dug a shallow hole in the ground and buried Wang Lin's corpse puppet. He jumped into the hole and told me to bury him with the corpse puppet. He told me to not make a sound and not to disturb him. After 12 hours, I would dig him up. Chapter 409. I curiously looked at the corpse puppet formed by the evil sacrificial spirit. I couldn't find any flaws. It was exactly the same as Wang Lin's corpse puppet. What was even more amazing was that when I used my spiritual sense to check, I found that this corpse puppet's cultivation level was only at the 7 apertures stage. It didn't have the powerful Yin energy of the little zombie or the evil sacrificial spirit's aura. I thought that the shifting ink bead I used was already a rare disguise technique, but I didn't expect that the evil spirit would casually take out an even more exquisite technique. What's the name of this magical technique? Why is it so mystical? The evil sacrificial spirit shook its head and said, "It's just a transplanting technique. It's not really magical. If you want to learn, I can teach you when you reach the celestial master realm. However, you can only learn but not use it. You have to at least cultivate the yang spirit before you can get a glimpse of its subtlety." His words stunned me. No wonder this technique was so exquisite. It turned out that I could only use it when I was a yang god, celestial master. However, when I reached the realm of the yang god, celestial master, it didn't matter if it was the Metaphysics Association or the Dragon Tiger Mountain. Even if I couldn't afford to provoke them, I would still have the ability to protect myself. Even if I learned this transformation technique, it wouldn't be of much use. With that thought, I calmed down a little. I asked the evil spirit to cultivate and recover his Yin energy. I sat down cross-legged and continued to adjust my breathing. During this period of time, the shaman energy in my body had completely recovered. However, the injuries that I had suffered previously had yet to fully heal. Adjusting my breathing would allow me to better recover from my injuries. Around 2 hours later, I opened my eyes and got up to move my body. The external injuries on my body were almost healed. As for the lifespan that I had used, it was impossible to make up for. No matter how much I regulated my breathing, it would be useless. Then I began to recall the techniques of the corpse insect. Since I had decided to stay here, I had to understand the techniques of the sect. That way, I could disguise myself better. Yin Qi wasn't a problem. The Yin Qi that the corpse sect cultivated came from shaman energy. Although I couldn't transform my shaman energy into Yin Qi, at least others wouldn't be able to see any abnormalities. In addition, my eyes could also lend Yin Qi to me. In theory, there was no flaw in this. The only thing I was worried about was that I might not be able to smoothly explain my sex cultivation technique when discussing it with others. That would arouse suspicion. So for the next hour, I memorized the 3 cultivation methods of the corpse sect. Only after I memorized them did I stop. Not only that, I also exchanged some commands with the evil sacrificial spirit. If we need to use the corpse puppets in front of outsiders, we can use the commands to communicate. From beginning to end, it took me 20 hours to finish all the work. When I was done and was about to lie down to rest, someone knocked on the door of the cave. My heart tightened. Finally, I was going to meet the people of the Yin Corpse sect. I called Tong Tong and asked her to release her yin energy to cover my face. Then I opened the door. When the door opened, a tall and thin corpse sect disciple was standing outside. He was pushing a cart with a lot of food on it. I was stunned, but I immediately reacted. It was the disciple on duty to deliver food every day. Last time I was in the corpse sect, I also did this task. In the corpse sect, in order to allow the disciples to focus more on cultivation, all the disciples would take turns delivering food. Also, the food was only delivered once a day. The corpse sect never cared about enjoyment. Although the chores were done by the disciples of the White Corpse Cave, the disciples of the corpse sect also had to pass on orders from the higher-ups. Usually, each temple had their own responsibilities. In Wang Lin's memories, the person who delivered the food to me was called Jiang Dongcheng. Like Wang Lin, he had also opened 5 apertures. He was from the middle temple of the Black Corpse Cave, so we often interacted with each other. He was one of the more sociable disciples in the corpse sect, so he often got close to the disciples of the middle temple who had opened 6 apertures. This was especially true for a person named Su Wei. Su Wei had opened 6 apertures, but his corpse puppet had opened 9 apertures. He was very close to the peak of the Black Corpse Cave. Normally, Wang Lin didn't have much interaction with these people, nor did they have any conflicts. However, this Jiang Dongcheng was like a fox borrowing the tiger's might, and often had conflicts with the disciples of the Middle Temple. 2 years ago, when Wang Lin had just entered the Middle Temple, they had a quarrel. After that, Jiang Dongcheng had targeted Wang Lin many times. At first, Wang Lin wasn't convinced, but after he found out that Jiang Dongcheng was close to one of the geniuses of the Middle Temple, Wang Lin could only swallow his anger and apologize to Jiang Dongcheng. However, Jiang Dongcheng was a vengeful person and would often humiliate Wang Lin. Wang Lin was a beggar who grew up on the streets, so his patience wasn't lacking at all. As all this information quickly flashed through my mind, my reaction was a bit slow, so I didn't catch the food that Jiang Dongcheng passed to me. As a result, Jiang Dongcheng deliberately moved his hand away, causing the food to fall to the ground. He must have gotten used to this kind of thing, so he chuckled at me and said, "Junior brother Wang, even if you don't want to eat, you can't waste food like this. If Manager Chen sees this, he will give you trouble." This kind of thing had already happened more than once in Wang Lin's memory, so I naturally knew what Wang Lin's reaction would be, so I directly apologized to him. "I'm just too clumsy. Please forgive me, senior brother Jiang." Jiang Dongcheng liked to bully others. Seeing that I was apologizing, he didn't say anything more. He picked up the bus and was about to leave. However, before he left, he suddenly turned his head and asked me, "Junior brother Wang, did you make a breakthrough recently? I can see that the yin energy around your body has increased a lot." My heart skipped a beat. Earlier, when I had Tong Tong cover me with yin energy, I had accurately calculated the range of yin energy needed to seal the 5 apertures. I didn't think that Jiang Dongcheng would be able to see through it. However, the difference shouldn't be too big, so he wouldn't be suspicious. I quickly nodded. I've made some progress recently, but I'm still far from senior brother Jiang's. Jiang Dongcheng squeezed out a smile at me, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He put down the train once again and said with a warmer tone, "It seems that junior brother Wang's talent is pretty good. Tomorrow is the end of the month examination. Junior brother Wang will definitely be remembered by Palace Head Lu. If Palace Head Lu takes a liking to you and accepts you as his disciple, junior brother Wang will reach the heavens in a single bound." The end of the month exam. Wang Lin's memory didn't have any exam, but looking at Jiang Dongcheng's expression, it was clear that he wasn't lying to me. It seemed that the soul search didn't find this part of his memory. I quickly shook my head and said, "Senior brother Jiang, don't make fun of this little brother. Even if Palace Master Lu were to accept a disciple, he would accept a senior like Senior Brother Jiang. It wouldn't be my turn. Jiang Dong Chung shook his head. After exchanging a few more pleasantries, he specially gave me another portion of food before finally leaving. He was really a smart person. He had bullied me many times in the past, but after seeing that my cultivation had improved, his attitude immediately changed. He really knew how to seek fortune and avoid calamity. After he left, I cleaned up the leftovers at the entrance before returning to the cave to cultivate. When I woke up the next morning, I paid attention to the movements at the entrance. At noon, I heard a few sets of footsteps outside the cave. I knew that it was definitely time for the exam. I prepared a little before leaving with the evil sacrificial spirit. When I arrived outside, there were groups of 2 or 3 disciples walking together in the same direction. I followed the crowd and saw a few familiar faces on the way. However, no one took the initiative to greet me, so I naturally didn't pay attention to them. Very quickly, I followed the crowd to the Black Zombie Cave's middle hall. When I arrived, most of the people had already gathered. Behind the table at the front of the group sat a middle-aged man with a cultivation of the middle stage of the glorious memory realm. He should be the Palace Master Lu that Jiang Dong Chung had mentioned. There was also a man with a goatee who had reached the pinnacle of the acupoint pressing realm. From his appearance, he was most likely Steward Chun. After Steward Chun and the others arrived, he called names. Afterwards, Palace Master Lu stood up and pointed at a stone tablet not far from him. According to the order, go to the Yin Qi tablet and begin the Yin Qi test. If your Yin Qi increases, you will be rewarded. If your Yin Qi doesn't increase, you will be punished. If your Yin Qi doesn't increase, you will have to clean it up and move to the soul-devouring cave for a few days. Let's begin. I was speechless as I listened from the side. The rules of the corpse sect were really simple and cruel. If your cultivation didn't increase, you would have to go to the soul-devouring cave. It was no wonder that the people of the corpse sect cultivated so desperately. There was also an order for the Yin Qi test. In the corpse sect, there was only one rule, and that was that those with the highest cultivation would be at the front, and those with the lowest cultivation would be at the back. Therefore, the first to walk over were the people who had reached the 6 apertures sealed. Among them was the short and fat Su Wei. Moreover, he walked in the front, so he was obviously the strongest among the Middle Temple disciples. When he reached the stone tablet, Su Wei placed his hand on it. Soon, a thick Yin Qi appeared and hovered around the stone tablet. After this wave of Yin Qi appeared, another 5 waves of Yin Qi appeared in quick succession. It was obvious that this Su Wei had reached the 6 sealed acupoints. Palace Master Lu, who was sitting on a chair to the side, nodded and said with a gratified expression, "Not bad. Your 6 apertures sealed has been completely stabilized. It even shows signs of surpassing." Before he could finish his words, another stream of Yin Qi appeared out of thin air above the 6 streams of Yin Qi surrounding the stone tablet. Although this stream of Yin Qi was extremely dim, it signified that Su Wei had reached the 7 acupoints. Although there was only a difference of 1 aperture between the 6 apertures sealed and the 7 apertures sealed, it was actually the difference between the middle and late stages of the 6 apertures sealed. Moreover, after reaching the 7 apertures sealed, one could advance to the upper temple of the Black Zombie Cave. Palace Master Lu stood up from his chair and praised with a smile, "Good, you've actually reached the 7 apertures sealed." He stooped to take a look and exclaimed in surprise. Then, he let go of the wisp of Yin energy and directly reached out to grab me. I was startled, thinking that he had noticed something was wrong and was about to attack me. Instinctively, I wanted to take action. However, I soon found that his hand didn't have any energy. It didn't look like he was going to attack me. I restrained myself. After grabbing my shoulder, he didn't pull me to his side. Instead, he took the initiative to approach me. His eyes gazed at me as he carefully examined me from head to toe. After examining me, his face turned indescribably frightened. "You have the pure Een bloodline." As soon as he said that, the entire hall burst into an uproar. Everybody's eyes focused on me, their faces filled with admiration and shock. After a long while, someone finally reacted and started to discuss. How could it be the pure Een bloodline? There aren't many people in the sect with such a constitution, right? Hall Master Lu has confirmed it. Do you dare to doubt his vision? This kid will become the disciple that the sect will nurture in the future. I didn't expect him to have such a lucky encounter. Sigh. I didn't know what the pure Een bloodline was, but from their expressions and discussions, it wasn't something simple. I wasn't excited at all because I knew that I didn't have the pure Een bloodline. Even if I had it, it should be Tong-Tong's. At the same time, I felt a bit uneasy. My original intention in infiltrating the corpse sect was to avoid trouble. In this situation, the more low-key I was, the better. Being in the limelight wasn't a good thing for me. But sometimes man proposes, God disposes. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to keep a low profile even if I wanted to. I silently thought about what to do next and didn't say a word. After Hall Master Lu recovered from his shock, he was clearly excited. His gaze toward me seemed to have become much more intimate. He said to me, "Good. This is great. The pure Een bloodline is the best constitution to cultivate my corpse sex cultivation technique. Most of them are born with it, but there are a few that awaken it after birth. However, most of them are born before the age of 18. You, brat, are really lucky to have such a fortune at such an old age." I didn't know what to say, so I simply acted like a fool. It looked as if I had been blinded by excitement, but it didn't show any flaws. After sighing, Hall Master Lu's expression became gentle. He looked at me and squeezed out a smile on his dry face. He asked me, "You are called Wang Lin, right? I wonder if you were born inside my corpsine sect or outside." I didn't know what he meant, but Wang Lin was taken to the corpse sect from the outside, so he was naturally born outside the sect. After I replied, Hall Master Lu stroked his beard and let out a hollow laugh. His expression became even more gentle as he asked me again, "Since you are an outer disciple, you shouldn't have a master in the sect. Are you willing to become my disciple?" After he said this, I understood. He saw that my talent was extraordinary and wanted to take me as his disciple. I didn't even need to think about this question. Now that I was in the limelight, I would have to live in the eyes of others. It was hard to say whether or not someone would see through me. If I had a master to look after me, everything would be much safer. Thus, I immediately said, "I'm willing." After saying that, I prepared to clasp my hands and perform the ceremony of becoming his disciple. At this moment, Hall Master Lu laughed and reached out his hand to stop me. He warmly said, "No need to be so polite. People of our sect don't care about formalities. As long as you work hard in your cultivation, I will do my best to help you. All right, wait here for a moment. After I finish dealing with the matters here, I will seriously test your cultivation." I secretly let out a sigh of relief. Becoming his disciple wasn't a big deal, but having me kowtow to him 9 times like a disciple was a bit difficult. Although I wasn't a person who would rather break than bend, I still felt a bit uncomfortable in my heart. Now that he said that the sect didn't care about formalities, it would save me a lot of trouble in the future. After explaining everything to me, he quickly arranged for the remaining people to be tested. Afterwards, he announced the rewards and punishments for the exam. Perhaps it was because he was in a good mood. Hall Master Lu directly announced that no one would be punished this time. As for the rewards, it was very simple. Those who performed well could come to the middle hall to cultivate for a few days. The middle hall was also connected to the Yin energy passage. This place was close to the purple zombie cave, so the Yin energy here was much purer than normal caves. For corpse sect disciples who were obsessed with cultivation, cultivating here was a great reward. In the end, he took out something that looked like a purple leaf and handed it to me. He simply announced to everyone that he was going to give me the mysterious Yin leaf as the reward. After that, he told everyone to go back to their own rooms. When I heard the words mysterious Yin leaf, I was startled. I remembered the mysterious Yin liquid that the red shadow had given me. It wasn't until I received the purple leaf from Hall Master Lu that I realized that this leaf wasn't the liquid. When I searched Wang Lin's soul, I vaguely remembered this mysterious Yin leaf. It seemed to be something that the corpse sect would give out after each exam. However, it would only be given to the first-place disciple. Its effect seemed to be to increase the rank of the corpse puppet. I heard that one leaf could increase the acupoint of a corpse puppet by 1 point. Its effect was very mysterious. Chapter 4:11. The corpse insect's cultivation method was rather extreme. The disciples of the sect could casually exchange pointers with each other. Fighting each other wasn't a big deal, so Su Wei's act of stealing something wasn't rare. The only thing I didn't understand was that I had just become Palace Lord Lu's disciple, yet he still dared to do such a thing. It was obvious that he didn't put Palace Lord Lu in his eyes. He probably had something to rely on. However, no matter what he was relying on, I couldn't hand the mysterious Yin leaf over to him. This was a leaf from the Tai Sui's body. Who knows what secret it held? Moreover, I had hurried back to study the mysterious Yin leaf, so I couldn't hand it over to him. I smiled at Su Wei and shook my head. I'm sorry, Senior Brother Su. I still have a use for the mysterious Yin leaf. After saying that, I didn't pay any more attention to him and directly pushed open the door. I brought the evil sacrificial spirit back into the cave, leaving Su Wei and Jiang Dongcheng to the side. Not long after I entered, I heard a knock on the door. I frowned and thought to myself, this Su Wei really doesn't know what's good for him. Although I don't want to cause trouble, he's only at the pressure point realm. I have countless ways to kill him without anyone noticing. If he really wants to die, then he can't blame me. I walked over and opened the door. When I opened the door, I saw Jiang Dongcheng standing outside. When he saw that the door was opened, he immediately walked in with a distressed expression and said to me, Brother Wang, your previous actions were somewhat wrong. Now that you've offended Su Wei, I'm afraid that you'll have to suffer in the future. Listen to your brother's advice and quickly hand over the mysterious Yin leaf to him. Also, properly apologize, and this matter can still be resolved. Otherwise, I'm afraid that you'll have to suffer greatly. His words made me puzzled. I asked him curiously, what right does he have to make me suffer? We're all members of the sect, so how can he kill me and steal the mysterious Yin leaf? Jiang Dongcheng looked at me with a "you're very naive" expression and shook his head. Of course he can't kill you, but just now when he left, he said that if you don't hand over the mysterious Yin leaf today, he will come and challenge you tomorrow. This is completely in accordance with the sect's rules. Also, Brother Wang, don't think that Palace Master Lu will help you just because you've become his disciple. Su Wei's elder brother is Elder Su of the Purple Zombie Cave, and his father lives in the Flying Zombie Cave. If he really wants to fight you, Palace Master Lu won't dare to say a word. Challenge me? A 7-aperture sealed acupoint cultivator challenging me, a glorious consciousness cultivator. Just thinking about it makes me feel awkward for Su Wei. At the same time, I felt that it was strange. Chapter 4:12. Su Wei was short and fat, but he had an imposing aura. After seeing me come out, he revealed a sneer and said to me, "Yesterday, I told you to hand over the mysterious Een leaf. Otherwise, I'll personally come to get it. Since you didn't hand over the mysterious Een leaf, it means that you're ready to fight me. Please." With that, he waved his hand, and the corpse puppet behind him stepped forward, glaring at me like a tiger watching its prey. At this moment, Jiang Dongcheng appeared out of nowhere and quickly waved his hand to plead with Su Wei. "Senior brother Su, junior brother Wang was going to deliver it to you, but it was too late yesterday, and I didn't make it in time. Please wait, please wait." After he said that, he saw that Su Wei didn't respond, so he quickly ran in front of me and winked at me, hinting for me to give in. Although this person was good at currying favor, he still had a good heart at this time. My impression of him changed a lot, but I didn't plan on doing as he said. I smiled and shook my head. I walked past him and said to Su Wei, "Heavenly treasures naturally belong to the virtuous. If senior brother Su wants the mysterious Een leaf, you have to defeat me first." I was too lazy to waste any more words and called out to the evil sacrificial spirit, indicating for him to stall Su Wei's corpse puppet. I also made my move. I chanted a spell, and the Een energy in my body gathered in front of my chest, forming an arrow that shot towards Su Wei. When dealing with people that cultivate Een energy, the earth overturning stamp and pure Yang Yi fire had a strong restraining effect. But now that I was Wang Lin, I couldn't use those methods. I could only use the techniques that I learned from the corpse sex Een refining technique. The Een energy I used was limited to the amount of Een energy that my pupil had given me, which was equivalent to hitting 5 of my acupoints. Although this technique was something I had just learned as a peak glorious knowledge cultivator, my control of power was much better than Su Wei's. Adding on the advantage of the heavenly Een energy in my pupil, Su Wei had no chance of being my opponent. In fact, this was indeed the case. The speed of the Een Chi arrow was extremely fast. In an instant, it was only 5 feet away from Su Wei. He was obviously startled. He took out a small skull-like object from his body and threw it at the arrow. In an instant, the skull exploded, and a ghostly fire burned most of the arrow. Only an inch of the tail of the arrow was left in front of his face. He reached out and caught it in his palm. Even though his attack had not been effective, Su Wei could tell that something was wrong. The calm expression on his face dissipated, and he turned to call for his corpse puppet. He had only reached the sealed acupoint 7 acupoints yesterday. In terms of cultivation alone, he had no advantage over me. The reason why he dared to come to me with such great fanfare was most likely because of his corpse puppet that had reached the sealed acupoint 9 acupoints. Unfortunately, the evil sacrificial spirit was an existence even more terrifying than me. Although he had only reached the sealed acupoint 7 acupoints, his skills were really hard to deal with. Su Wei's corpse puppet had been attacking him for a long time, but it couldn't even touch the corner of his clothes. He was so angry that he stood there and screamed. Just as Su Wei was about to call his corpse puppet to deal with me, the evil sacrificial spirit dashed forward and grabbed the corpse puppet's arms, binding it tightly. At this moment, the corpse puppet could finally attack the evil sacrificial spirit. It didn't even care about Su Wei's call. It swung its arms and slapped the evil sacrificial spirit. However, the evil sacrificial spirit immediately let go and dodged to the side, continuing to dodge. When the corpse puppet wanted to leave again, it turned its head and came back to tangle with it. Under this kind of guerrilla warfare, the corpse puppet was exhausted. Su Wei was so anxious, but he had no other choice. His face was no longer calm. He was flustered and exasperated. I faintly smiled and read the spell. With the support of the huge amount of yin energy in my eyes, I shot 3 yin energy arrows at Su Wei. His expression changed drastically. He dodged left and right, barely managing to neutralize 2 arrows. However, he was unable to block the 3rd arrow. His body shrank back with great difficulty, and then his right shoulder was pierced through. A muffled groan escaped from his mouth. Su Wei hugged his shoulders as he retreated a few steps. He looked at me with a face full of shock. Obviously, he hadn't expected this result. Not only him, but Jiang Dongcheng, who wasn't far from him, and the people who had come out to watch the fun from the nearby caves were also shocked. They looked at me in disbelief. Yesterday, during the teacher's exam, I appeared out of nowhere. Today, I defeated Su Wei. In just 2 short days, I had become the center of attention in the temple. This didn't match my original intention of hiding in the corpse sect. However, yesterday, Jiang Dongcheng told me that the corpse sect didn't prohibit disciples from killing each other. After carefully analyzing the situation, I decided that I couldn't just endure Su Wei's provocation. Su Wei's background was deep. After being targeted by him, it would be very difficult for me to escape. Even if I secretly killed him, I couldn't guarantee that the family behind him wouldn't find out. However, in this kind of open competition, it didn't matter if I injured or killed Su Wei. With the corpse sect's rules, no one would be able to do anything to me. Moreover, in terms of cultivation, my heavenly yin energy had been shown at the yin energy steal yesterday. It was slightly higher than Su Wei's, so winning against him was completely within reason. As for the corpse puppet, although Su Wei was stronger than Wang Lin, there was a limit to how strong he was. He had only sealed 9 of my acupoints, so it was normal for him to be stalled by my corpse puppet for 10 minutes. Therefore, although Su Wei seemed to be much stronger than me, it was just a facade. It was normal for me to win against him. Some people might doubt it, but after a bit of analysis, their doubts disappeared. Of course, I didn't have any intention of killing him. After all, he had a Heaven's Master Realm father. Once I killed him, it would anger his father. We currently didn't have the strength to deal with him. Su Wei, whose face was covered in bruises, remained silent for over a minute. Afterwards, he waved his hand to call back his corpse puppet. With a hateful expression, he looked at me and said angrily, "Fine, you little brat, you've made a fortune in silence. You actually have such a high cultivation. However, with your strength, you should be able to go to the temple to cultivate soon. I'll find you at that time." Of course, I didn't take his words to heart. Without waiting for him to finish, I shook my head at him and called for the evil sacrificial spirit to return to the cave. After returning, I sat cross-legged on the bed and began to ponder. After this matter, I suddenly realized that my plan of staying silent for a while wasn't very appropriate. As a disciple of the corpse sect, there would always be many missions given to me by the sect. I would also have to interact with other people, and the risk of being exposed would always exist. Instead, it would be better for me to be in the limelight and become a dazzling figure. Only then would I be able to hide my true identity. That was why when I accidentally became the pure Yin bloodline that Palace Head Lu mentioned yesterday and became his disciple, it was actually a good thing. This also included the matter with Su Wei today. It wouldn't be long before the news of me defeating Su Wei would spread throughout the entire temple. When everyone's attention was focused on my body, they would forget about me. In that case, I couldn't keep a low profile and should be as high profile as possible. This was the way to establish myself. After thinking this through, my heart relaxed. I went to find a piece of paper and a pen. I wrote down the 3 corpse sect martial arts techniques that I had obtained from Wei Sampeng and Wang Lin's minds. I planned to study them in order to deceive people in the future. The morning quickly passed. In the afternoon, Jiang Dongcheng came to find me again. His attitude was different from before. This time, when he saw me, he grinned and shamelessly came over. He first flattered me. Then, with a frightened expression, he apologized to me. He said that he was muddle-headed before and that he had bullied me. He begged for my forgiveness. However, the first-ranked elder, Elder Yan, caught my attention. Elder Yan's name was Yan Dongwei. This name made me think of Yan Nantian. Both of them had the surname Yan, and their names were Dongwei and Nantian. They sounded very similar. In addition, both of them came from the corpse sect, and their cultivation was at the Heaven's Master Realm. I didn't believe that the two of them weren't related. I smiled and nodded, acting as if I didn't mean it. I then asked Jiang Dongcheng, I heard that Elder Yan has a younger brother or older brother who is also an elder. It seems that something happened to him, and he had a conflict with the sect. Junior brother Jiang, do you know about this? Jiang Dongcheng was at a loss. After thinking for a while, he shook his head and said, Where did you hear about this? Why haven't I heard about it? It seemed that Jiang Dongcheng hadn't heard about this. I shook my head and said with a smile, I only heard about it by accident. Maybe that person was just talking nonsense. That's right. I also heard that our sect has an ancestor with an even higher cultivation. Do you know about this? That day in the Yin-Chi passage, I heard the withered old man, sect master Yu Wenming, mention something about the ancestor. It vaguely indicated that this ancestor was an expert not inferior to celestial master Zhang. Moreover, it seemed that he usually stayed at the place where the heavenly law corpse was. I was very interested in this matter. Jiang Dongcheng nodded, and his expression suddenly became solemn. He mysteriously moved closer to me and said, You've asked the right question. On the surface, our sect only has 9 elders, but in reality, the 9 heavenly masters are only there to maintain the sect's operations. There is another person with an even higher cultivation. The people in the sect call him Ancestor. I heard that his cultivation has already reached the divine realm. It's not something that mortals like us can imagine. This was something that Su Wei accidentally told me. No one else knows about it. I was a bit disappointed. It seemed that the ordinary disciples of the corpse sect didn't know much about this so-called ancestor. However, it was normal. That kind of person was rarely seen, so it was impossible for a small figure like Jiang Dongcheng to know about it. I nodded and was about to end the conversation when Jiang Dongcheng suddenly said, I won't be able to see the ancestor in this life, but Senior Brother Wang, maybe you can. Our sect has a competition every year. Senior Brother Wang, you have awakened your pure Yin bloodline. If you can get into the top 3 of the second era group, you can go to the Heavenly Yin Cave to cultivate for 3 days. I heard that the ancestor is cultivating in the Heavenly Yin Cave. If you are lucky, you might be able to get pointers from the ancestor. You might even be chosen as a disciple by the ancestor. Chapter 414. After asking so many questions from start to finish, this was the information I wanted to know the most. Besides avoiding the pursuit of the Celestial Master Sect, I also had another important purpose in hiding in the Corpse Sect, which was to find the Heavenly Tao Corpse. To put it simply, if the Heavenly Tao Corpse was really a living Tai Sui, I wanted to see it again. From my contact with Xiao Jin, I vaguely felt that there was an inexplicable relationship between me and the Tai Sui. Although I didn't know what this relationship was, I knew that the Tai Sui was likely to follow me. When Xiao Jin was with me, he had already lost his cultivation, but this Tai Sui was different. It was very likely to be a Tai Sui with complete power. If it was with me, then Mount Longhu and the corpse sect would all be my opponents. If I wanted to figure this out, I would have to go to the cave again. From the situation that day, the corpse sect's ancestor was in the cave, so I couldn't force my way in. This competition was obviously an opportunity. I hurriedly asked about the competition. Jiang Dongqing was excited and didn't doubt me, so he excitedly told me about it. According to him, the competition was a grand event held by the corpse sect on the 15th day of the 7th month during the Hungry Ghost Festival. The competition was divided into 3 groups: the Second Era group, the Third Era group, and the Fourth Era group. An era was 12 years long. So the 3 groups were, in fact, under 24 years old, 24 to 36 years old, and above 36 years old. After the competition, the top 3 of each group would be selected to enter the Heavenly Yin Cave to cultivate. Among them, the top 3 of the Second Era group could only enter the Heavenly Yin Cave for 3 days, the Third Era group for 1 month, and the Fourth Era group for 3 months. Although the Second Era group had the shortest time to enter, that was only because the cultivation of the young people in the Second Era group wasn't too high. 3 days of cultivation was enough. In fact, the Second Era group benefited the most because the talented young people in the Second Era group were likely to be personally taught by the ancestor or even accepted as a disciple. As for the other 2 groups, due to their age, they simply didn't have this opportunity. Because of this, among the 3 groups, the Second Era group was often the most competitive. After introducing the basic situation, Jiang Dongqing said to me with a bit of emotion, "In the past, the competitors were all geniuses of the sect. This year, with Senior Brother Wang's participation, us ordinary disciples can finally see some hope. However, Senior Brother Wang, you should pay attention when the time comes. During the large competition, the sect doesn't restrict life and death. If I remember correctly, Senior Brother Wang, you're only 22 years old this year." Fortunately, the worst-case scenario didn't happen. After the woman stared at me for half a minute, her gaze shifted to the sacrificial evil spirit behind me. She stared at the sacrificial evil spirit for half a minute, just like how she had stared at me previously. Suddenly, she turned her head and asked me, "Is this your corpse puppet?" Just as I heaved a sigh of relief, I suddenly tensed up again. Could it be that she sensed something wrong with the sacrificial evil spirit? I lifted my head to look at her and nodded. "That's right, this is my corpse puppet." The woman finally moved her gaze away. She turned around and waved her hand. In a split second, a dark shadow appeared from the darkness and stood in front of the woman. I focused my eyes and saw that the dark shadow was a tall, dark purple corpse. The corpse didn't have any hair on its body and wore strange clothes. There wasn't any rotten flesh or bones on its face, but its skin was glowing. It looked like a living person. It was different from the ice-cold woman. With just a glance, I was sure that the corpse was a flying zombie, which had the cultivation base of a human heavenly master. My heart became even colder. I already felt that the situation was bad when I had to face one heavenly master. Now, I might have to face 2 heavenly masters. What should I do? While I was thinking, the ice-cold woman suddenly made a complicated hand seal and placed it on the purple corpse. Then she extended her hand and pointed at the sacrificial evil spirit. Before I could react, the purple corpse was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it was next to the sacrificial evil spirit. Like a dog, it moved closer to the sacrificial evil spirit and sniffed. It seemed that it was trying to smell the sacrificial evil spirit. This strange scene made me dumbfounded. However, I didn't let my guard down. I secretly accumulated the shaman energy in my body. If something went wrong, I would immediately take action. The sacrificial evil spirit was much calmer than me. It stood there and didn't move. It let the purple corpse sniff its body. After a full 3 minutes, the purple corpse finally stopped. It looked at the sacrificial evil spirit with an intense fear in its eyes. Its body suddenly flew backwards, as if it had seen some kind of ancient beast. It hid behind the cold woman, with its tail between its legs. Chapter 4:15. The purple corpse's energy was thick. It was obvious that she had a heavenly master cultivation base. However, she ran away from the evil sacrificial spirit with a frightened face. I didn't know what others would think, but my first reaction was that the evil sacrificial spirit had been exposed. The purple corpse had recognized his true cultivation base. However, just as I was about to make the first move, I suddenly thought of something. The evil sacrificial spirit's true cultivation base was indeed terrifying, but he couldn't even recover to the heavenly master realm. Even if the purple corpse had recognized his cultivation base, she shouldn't have been so afraid. What's going on? I was a little confused. I put down my foot that I was about to lift. I wanted to observe the situation. The reality was completely different from what I had guessed. The cold woman didn't seem to have any intention of attacking. She turned to the purple corpse and patted it as if she was comforting it. After a long time, she pointed at the distance. The purple corpse instantly flew away and disappeared into the darkness. After the purple corpse had left, the cold woman lifted her head and suddenly asked me, "Are you willing to take me as your master?" I was dumbfounded. What's going on? Why did she suddenly want to take me as her disciple? I didn't know how to answer and could only look at Hall Master Lu, who wasn't far from me. He didn't seem to know that the cold woman would do such a thing. His expression was similar to mine. He was also dumbfounded and looked at the cold woman in surprise. I didn't immediately answer her question. Instead, I hesitantly turned to Hall Master Lu and asked, "Master," without waiting for me to say anything, the doubt on Palace Head Lu's face disappeared. Instead, it was replaced with a slightly regretful yet excited expression. He interrupted me and said, "Marshal Uncle Lin wants to accept you as his disciple. This is a great fortune. You don't have to call me master anymore. In the future, since you've become Marshal Uncle Lin's disciple, you can just call me Senior Brother Lu when we meet." It was obvious that he didn't want me to stay. In other words, he didn't have the courage to fight with this cold woman. Since he had already given up, I didn't have anything else to say. I nodded and called out to the cold woman, "Master!" When the ice-cold woman heard how I addressed her, her expression didn't change at all. She replied with a cold expression, then asked me, "Your name, age, family situation, when you joined the sect, when you obtained the corpse puppet. Tell me all of it." She threw out so many questions in one breath, as if she was investigating someone's background. Although I didn't know what she was planning, I didn't dare to be negligent. I recalled the memories I had seen in Wang Lin's mind and answered her questions one by one. After hearing my reply, she faintly nodded. I couldn't tell if she was satisfied or not. She then spoke to me again. "You should have heard of my identity. I am an elder of the sect and am in charge of the Purple Zombie Cave's lower hall. After you become my disciple, you should cultivate with me, but the sect's rules are strict, so you can only temporarily stay in the Black Zombie Cave. It won't be too late for you to cultivate with me in the Purple Zombie Cave after you reach the Glory of Consciousness realm. Of course, if you have any questions about your cultivation, you can also come to the Purple Zombie Cave to find me. This is an access token that will allow you to freely enter and exit the Purple Zombie Cave." After saying that, she casually tossed a purple circular token into my hand. At this moment, I was still in a dazed state. After catching the token, I casually looked at it before putting it in my pocket. Seeing that I had put away the token, the cold woman took out an old thread-bound book and handed it to me. This is the book that I learned from when I was in the pressure point realm. I should read it when I get back. It'll be good for my cultivation. After chattering for a long time, she finally told me to go back. However, just as I was about to leave, she suddenly stopped me and said, "In the future, pay more attention to your corpse puppet. If it shows any abnormalities, you must immediately come and tell me. You understand?" This was another sentence that I didn't understand, but I didn't ask any more questions. I nodded to show that I understood. Then, I left with the evil sacrificial spirit. After returning to my cave, I sat down and frowned as I thought about everything that had happened today. That cold woman was obviously the one that Jiang Dongcheng had mentioned before. She was the last ranked elder of the corpse sect, Elder Lin. If I wasn't mistaken, her cultivation was at the glorious knowledge realm. However, when the corpse sect calculated a person's cultivation, they also calculated their corpse puppet. She most likely relied on her Heaven Master Realm Purple Corpse to become an elder. Her action of accepting me as a disciple wasn't strange. After all, I had inexplicably become a pure Yin bloodline. It was normal for her to snatch me away from Palace Master Lu's hands. However, from her strange actions today, I could clearly see that she didn't accept me as a disciple because of my physique. It was more likely because of my corpse puppet, which was the evil sacrificial spirit. I didn't know what the purple corpse had smelled from the evil sacrificial spirit, but it was obvious that the cold woman had misunderstood something. It was because of the misunderstanding of the evil sacrificial spirit that she finally decided to accept me as a disciple. What was this misunderstanding? I frowned and pondered for a long time, but I didn't have a single clue. It wasn't until the evening that I got up and went to find Jiang Dongcheng. When I arrived at his cave, I didn't exchange pleasantries with him and asked him to tell me about Elder Lin's situation in detail. Jiang Dongcheng didn't know what had happened, but he didn't refuse and told me everything he knew in detail. The cold Elder Lin was called Lin Shui. Her cultivation was indeed at the middle stage of the glorious knowledge realm. She relied on her corpse puppet to become an elder, but because her cultivation wasn't high enough, she was ranked last. Although her cultivation level wasn't high, because of her beauty and the fact that she was a rare female in the corpse sect, she was very popular in the sect. Not only was she in charge of the Purple Zombie Cave, but the other 4 caves and 7 temples were also very familiar with her. It could be said that she was the most popular among the 9 elders. After the introduction, Jiang Dongcheng smiled and asked me why I was suddenly interested in the beautiful Elder Lin. I shook my head. It's not that I'm interested in her, but she's interested in me. Today, she came to our black zombie cave and accepted me as her disciple. What? The smile on Jiang Dongcheng's face froze, but he immediately became excited again. You really became Elder Lin's disciple? Amazing! Brother Wang, you're too amazing. Many people in our sect have dreamed of this, but you've made it happen. He seemed to be even more excited than me. He was so excited that he even forgot to address me. I didn't mind it and waited for him to calm down before asking, "Today, Elder Lin, my master told me that if I have any problems with my cultivation, I can find her at any time. However, I've never been to the Purple Zombie Cave before, so I don't know the situation there. I don't know if Junior Brother Jiang understands the situation in the Purple Zombie Cave, or if you know where the lower hall is located." Jiang Dongcheng claimed that he was a local tyrant, and he wasn't bluffing. He immediately took a pen and paper and drew the general situation of the Purple Zombie Cave for me. I've been to the Purple Zombie Cave many times, so I know the place well. I'm sure I can find it according to the map. After receiving the map, I left and returned to my cave mansion. I opened the map and combined it with the scene I had seen in the purple zombie cave in the Een Energy Passage. I calculated the location of the lower hall in the purple zombie cave. After confirming the location, I threw the map away and went to the wall of the cave mansion. The wall had been repaired a few days ago. At this moment, it didn't look any different from the surrounding walls. However, it was still much weaker than the original wall. I gently poked it, and it broke, revealing a hole that people could enter. Before entering, I called Tong Tong and asked her to guard my cave mansion. If someone knocked on the door, she could notify me immediately. After everything was ready, I took the evil sacrificial spirit back to the Een Energy Passage. If I wanted to know why Lin Shui had accepted me as her disciple, the only way was to spy. If she had an ulterior motive, she would reveal it sooner or later. Moreover, it was possible that she had told someone else about it. I couldn't go to the purple zombie cave to spy. However, the Een Energy Passage connected to all the caves. It was the best place for me to spy on her. After entering the Een Energy Passage, I followed Jiang Dongqing's map and my own calculations. Soon, I reached the lower hall of the purple zombie cave. The wall here wasn't much different from the other caves. There were also small holes on the wall, and energy seeped out of them. The only difference was that this wall had twice as many holes as the other caves. This difference confirmed my suspicion that it was the lower hall of Purple Zombie Cave. I carefully moved forward and squinted to look through the small hole. As soon as I saw what was inside, I jumped in fright and quickly shrank back. It was the lower hall of the Purple Zombie Cave, and Lin Shui was in the cave mansion. However, there was a big bathtub near the wall. Chapter 416. Most of the people in the corpse insect were men. That was why I didn't think much about it when I thought about the peeping technique. I also forgot that Lin Shui was a woman. Now, I felt embarrassed. Of course, I wouldn't do something like peeping while someone was bathing. However, I didn't want to leave just like that. After all, every time I came to the Een Chi Passage, I had to open the wall of the cave. Also, to prevent people from noticing, I had to fix the wall. If I returned without any results this time, it would be troublesome to come back again. I leaned against the wall and pondered for a long time. In the end, I didn't leave, but I didn't want to peep either. I put my ear to the wall and listened to the movements inside. My luck was not bad. In the first hour, there was only the sound of Elder Lin bathing. Just as I was getting annoyed and was about to leave, I heard a crisp voice. "Who is it?" I was startled and thought that Elder Lin had found me. I was scared and wanted to run away. However, I soon heard a vague voice. "Junior Sister Lin, it's me." The voice obviously came from far away. I immediately realized that Lin Shui hadn't found me. Someone was knocking on the door. Soon, I heard Lin Shui getting out of the shower and putting on her clothes. When I heard her open the door, I put my eyes on the small hole in the wall and peeked inside. Elder Lin had put on her clothes. She was wearing a white gauze dress. Her wet hair draped over her back, and I could see that she had just gotten out of the bath. She looked even more beautiful than during the day. Looking at her appearance, I couldn't help but remember the first time I saw her bathing. A strange feeling arose in my heart. Aside from Elder Lin, there was also a middle-aged man about 40 years old inside the cave. His face was rosy, his body was burly, and he looked a bit manly. However, from his expression, he seemed to admire Lin Shui a bit. His words were a bit weaker for no reason, as he asked Lin Shui, "Junior Sister Lin, I heard that you accepted Wang Lin as your disciple today. I presume you have already tested the corpse puppet?" Lin Shui's expression was cold, and it was impossible to tell what she was thinking. She nodded calmly. "I've verified it. It's indeed the host corpse. However, it's a little strange. The corpse puppet's body doesn't look special on the surface, but it's extremely talented. Even if we couldn't see through the host corpse, it doesn't make sense for us to be wrong about this corpse puppet as well." Her words made me frown. Possess corpse? What was that? Are they talking about sacrificing evil spirits? Before I could think further, the middle-aged man shook his head and said, "It's hard to tell the aptitude of a corpse. Since this corpse puppet looks ordinary, it's possible that it was overlooked during the examination. Moreover, the host soul's cultivation base is terrifying, so it's possible that it altered the aptitude of the corpse puppet." Lin Shui fell silent for a moment, as if she had accepted the middle-aged man's words. She then continued, "Senior Brother Zhao's words make sense. If that's the case, I'll report this to Sect Leader Chen." Senior Brother Zhao nodded with a smile on his face. He changed the topic and asked Lin Shui, "Junior Sister Lin, a few days ago, I heard you say that you encountered a bottleneck in your cultivation. At that time, Sect Leader Chen and the others were there, so I didn't ask much. Why don't you tell me now, and I'll help you?" From his expression, it was obvious that he wasn't trying to help Lin Shui, but was trying to please her. I quietly moved away and tiptoed away from the wall. I turned around and returned to my cave residence. Through the conversation between Lin Shui and Elder Zhao, the doubts in my heart gradually became clear. At first, I didn't understand what host corpse and host soul were, but later on, I suddenly remembered the shocking secret of the corpse sect that Yen Nantian had told me about, which was the seizing the body to extend one's life technique. When I thought about it, the meaning behind Lin Shui and Elder Zhao's words was very clear. They obviously thought that the host soul was the body of an extremely strong expert that was residing in the corpse puppet. That was why Lin Shui suddenly accepted me as her disciple. That was why she told me to pay close attention to the corpse puppet's situation. If there was any abnormal movement, I had to immediately report it to her. I could even speculate that they definitely thought that my pure Yin bloodline was obtained because of the corpse puppet. When I returned to my bed, I still felt that it was a bit unimaginable. But after thinking about it, the host soul was actually the same as the seizing the body to extend one's life technique that Yen Nantian had mentioned. The only difference was that I didn't refine the small corpse puppet into a corpse puppet. It was no wonder that Lin Shui and the others misunderstood. I was inexplicably shocked, not because of this matter, but because of the conversation between Lin Shui and Elder Zhao. It was obvious that this kind of thing wasn't rare in the corpse sect. At the very least, it wasn't rare for Lin Shui and Elder Zhao. Just how many of these corpse puppets were there in the corpse sect? I could even imagine how many young god celestial masters and above were there in the metaphysics world. I suddenly felt that the metaphysics world that I knew was only a corner of the world. Perhaps the people with profound cultivation were hiding in the corners of this world, scheming against the heavens. If the corpse sect was able to do this, then they must have obtained great benefits. Moreover, if the corpse sect could help others, they could also extend their own lives. Therefore, in this frightening sect, the experts with celestial master cultivation weren't limited to the 9 grand elders or the hidden ancestor. There were definitely more people with celestial master cultivation who didn't care about worldly affairs and didn't let outsiders know about them. Moreover, the number of people with celestial master cultivation wouldn't be small. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but feel even more solemn. Facing such a frightening corpse sect, I had to be even more careful. After understanding this matter, I began to analyze the pros and cons of this matter. The cons were obvious. I had officially entered the eyes of the higher-ups of the corpse sect. From now on, there would definitely be more eyes on me. This time, it was only Lin Shui. Because her cultivation wasn't high enough, she couldn't see that I had used the EMO bead to change my appearance. If it was an elder with celestial master cultivation, it was very likely that I wouldn't be able to hide it. I had to think of a solution as soon as possible. The benefits of this matter were also obvious. Just a while ago, I was still thinking about how to quickly increase my strength without arousing suspicion. At that time, the method I thought of was to quickly increase my strength by sacrificing an evil spirit. However, I couldn't think of a reason to do so. Now, I didn't need to worry about this problem anymore. The higher-ups of the corpse sect had already determined that the sacrificial evil spirit was a parasitic corpse with an extremely powerful celestial master's yang spirit. Therefore, no matter how much the sacrificial evil spirit's cultivation increased, no one would doubt it. This could be considered to have solved my urgent problem. After understanding this matter, I directly told the sacrificial evil spirit about my deduction, so that he didn't need to maintain his 7-aperture sealed acupoints cultivation and could directly reveal his glory of knowledge cultivation. Because the sacrificial evil spirit couldn't enter the heaven-grade Yin-Chi range of the Yin-Chi passage, he couldn't restore his celestial master cultivation by relying on Xian-grade and earth-grade Yin-Chi. Currently, he could only maintain his glory of knowledge late-stage appearance. Revealing his glory of knowledge early-stage cultivation was actually the same as not concealing his cultivation. After talking about this matter, I told the sacrificial evil spirit about the corpse sect's possession to prolong their lives. After listening to my speculation, the sacrificial evil spirit didn't show the frightened expression I had expected. Instead, he disdainfully shook his head and said to me, "A group of people are about to reach the end of their lives, so they thought of this method in desperation. Don't think that possession to prolong their lives is too magical. As for the specifics, I don't know the inside story, so I can't say for sure." Chapter 417. The corpse sect was a place outside of civilization. Most of the disciples in the sect were focused on cultivation and didn't care about worldly affairs. However, Palace Master Lu's personality was similar to Jiang Dongqing's. They were both very unscrupulous. After Lin Shui accepted me as her disciple, Palace Master Lu's attitude toward me became even more amiable. Calling me over most likely wasn't a bad thing, so I had no reason not to go. When I arrived at the middle hall, I was surprised to find that there were a dozen or so disciples with high cultivation levels. It turned out that I wasn't the only person Palace Master Lu had called. Seeing me enter, Palace Master Lu, who was sitting on his chair, enthusiastically stood up and smiled at me. "Junior apprentice Brother Wang, come, sit down." Hearing how he addressed me, I felt awkward for some reason. However, after thinking about it, I understood. Lin Shui had the cultivation of a celestial master, 1 generation higher than Hall Master Lu. If I became Lin Shui's disciple, no matter what cultivation I had, Hall Master Lu could only call me junior brother at most. I understood this logic, but the other disciples of the middle hall didn't. Hearing Hall Master Lu's greeting, a group of people revealed bewildered expressions and looked at me and Hall Master Lu in astonishment. Seeing this, Palace Master Lu smiled and explained to everyone still doesn't know, but because of junior apprentice Brother Wang's talent, he was accepted as a disciple by Elder Lin. According to the sect's rules, if you see Wang Lin in the future, remember to call him Marshal Uncle Wang. Otherwise, the sect's rules won't let you off. You all understand? After he finished speaking, everyone's faces were filled with surprise. They even ignored the sect's strict rules and began to talk. "Elder Lin. It can't be Elder Lin Shui, right? She accepted Wang Lin as her disciple? How is that possible? Doesn't Elder Lin never accept disciples?" Aside from Elder Lin Shui, Is there another elder named Lin in the sect? No, this Wang Lin is really lucky. He awakened his bloodline and became an elder's disciple. In the future, he will soar into the heavens. The voices were very noisy, but Palace Master Lu seemed to understand the doubts in everyone's hearts, so he didn't say anything to stop them. He just silently looked at them. Thanks to the strict rules of the corpse sect, the discussion didn't last for too long. They quickly calmed down and looked at me. They all bowed and said, "Greetings, Martial Uncle Wang." It was just a group of acupoint sealing disciples. Bowing to them wouldn't have affected my heart, but perhaps it was because I had been playing the role of Wang Lin for too long that I felt a bit awkward. So I just stood there and didn't say a word. Done. At this moment, Hall Master Lu waved his hand and changed the topic. With a straight face, he continued, "The reason why I called everyone here is to discuss the sect grand competition. Everyone knows the format of the grand competition every year. The Hungry Ghost Festival is the final round, and the preliminaries will start on April 1st, which is 3 days from now. You are all the outstanding disciples of the Middle Hall, and will be participating in this year's grand competition. Our Middle Hall disciples are only at the middle acupoint sealing stage, so it will be extremely difficult for us to fight for the final spot. You don't need to set high standards for yourselves, but the grand competition is the biggest event of the sect every year. The top 100 disciples of each group will be rewarded. Last year, 10 people from the Middle Hall entered the top 100 of the Second Era group. This year, my request for everyone is that your results must not drop. Otherwise, not only will I lose face, but you will also have a hard time in the coming year." The first part of his introduction of the grand competition was normal, but the second part of his introduction was not very magnanimous. However, none of the disciples expressed any surprise, and they all nodded in agreement. It seemed that they were used to Hall Master Lu's personality. I was a bit stunned. I originally thought that the grand competition would start during the Hungry Ghost Festival. I didn't think that it would be the final round, and it would start so soon. Fortunately, I had made use of the misunderstanding between Lin Shui and the others to think of a way to reveal the power of the sacrificial evil spirit. Otherwise, this sudden news would have disrupted all of my plans. After a slight pause, Hall Master Lu continued, 3 days from now, at 6:45 in the morning, everyone will gather here again. The first round of the grand competition will begin. Those who cram for the Buddha's feet in the next few days must remember to keep track of the time when you are in seclusion. Those who are late will be disqualified. That will be all for now. You can all go now." After he finished speaking, everyone bowed in unison and dispersed. I was about to leave when Hall Master Lu suddenly said to me, "Junior Brother Wang, please wait. I have something to tell you." I was stunned and put my foot down again. After everyone had left, Hall Master Lu enthusiastically walked over and pulled me to sit next to him. He said to me, "Junior Brother Wang, even though you are extremely talented, your current cultivation is insufficient. This senior brother doesn't have any way to temporarily help you increase your cultivation. I can only give you this magic tool that I always carry with me. Here, it's this energy, all." As he said that, he passed a pure black all to my hand. He smiled and said, "This energy all can condense energy into the shape of an all. It has an extremely strong penetrating power." I was stunned. A few days ago, I had told the evil spirit to show my cultivation. Why did Hall Master Lu only see that it had reached the 8th acupoint? Could it be that the evil spirit's energy was restrained, and that the cultivation it was showing was slightly higher than Hall Master Lu's? That's why Hall Master Lu couldn't see through it. As I thought about that, I pretended to be hesitant and said, "Senior Brother Lou, the 8th acupoint doesn't seem to have improved much compared to the 7th acupoint. Are you mistaken?" Hallmaster Lou was stunned. Then he shook his head and said, "I can't be mistaken. How about this? Tell your corpse puppet not to move. I'll use the 8th acupoint to attack it. That way, I can break its defense without hurting it." I didn't understand, so I nodded and agreed. I turned around and told the evil spirit to stay where it was, not to move, and not to fight back. After I gave the order, Hallmaster Lou casually attacked the evil spirit with his palm. I looked at it and confirmed that his palm had reached the 8th acupoint. Soon, Hallmaster Lou's palm, covered in energy, hit the evil spirit's body. Then, without even looking at the result, he turned around and smiled at me. You see, I used the 8th acupoint. It's just enough to break its energy defense and force it back. Halfway through his words, Palace Head Lou seemed to have not heard the sound of the evil sacrificial spirit falling to the ground. He stopped talking in astonishment and turned his head to take a look. Immediately, his expression darkened as he said with slight embarrassment, "Huh? Your corpse puppet seems a little strange. How about this? I'll try again with my perfect acupoint pressing technique." Then he turned around and thrust his palm again. This time, the energy of the full mastery of the acupoint pressed directly on the evil spirit's body. This time, he didn't dare to turn around. He just stood there and watched. 2 seconds later, Hallmaster Lou looked at the evil spirit standing there motionlessly. He was so shocked that he couldn't believe his eyes. Chapter 418. Since a palm at the peak of pressure point completion couldn't break through the sacrificial spirit's defense, the only explanation was that the sacrificial spirit's cultivation had reached the glory of knowledge realm. Thus, he wasn't asking me, but just expressing the shock in his heart. I stood to the side, without saying anything. Palace Head Lou stood there in a daze for a full minute before turning his head to look at me. His face still carried an indescribably shocked expression. His mouth opened and closed a few times before he finally said to me, with slight embarrassment, "It seems that Junior Brother Wang's senses weren't wrong. Your corpse puppet is indeed unexpected, an unexpected glory of knowledge realm. According to our corpse sex rules, if a corpse puppet is still in the pressure point realm, even if it's at the peak of pressure point completion, you can't use a corpse puppet to raise your status. However, it's different for a corpse puppet to raise your status to Purple Zombie Cave." As he spoke, his expression calmed down, but his words became more and more emotional. He continued, "Previously, I called you Junior Brother Wang because of Elder Lin's identity. Now, it seems that I don't need to rely on Elder Lin's identity at all. I still have to call you Junior Brother Wang. Haha, Junior Brother Wang is still so young, but your future is limitless, limitless." It seemed that he had completely recovered. Unknowingly, he was trying to flatter me. I smiled and didn't reply to his words. I just nodded and said, "Since Senior Brother Lou has confirmed it, then I can rest assured. The great sect competition isn't far away, so I should hurry back and cultivate for 2 more days so that I won't lose face for the middle hall during the competition." After saying that, I wanted to leave, but Hallmaster Lou quickly pulled me back. "Junior Brother Wang, don't be anxious. Your corpse puppet now has the glory of knowledge realm. So, do you still need to worry about the competition? Conservatively speaking, you'll be able to enter the top 16, and you might even have a chance to advance further. Moreover, you're still so young. Next year, you might even have the qualifications to enter the top 3, so there's no need to be anxious. However, there's a problem that I have to tell you." I was stunned, not because of what he wanted to say, but because of the meaning behind his words. in the corpse sect, there were at least 16 people who had reached the glory of knowledge realm, or their corpse puppets who had reached the glory of knowledge realm. This number was terrifying. It should be known that I was already 26 years old this year. It was only last year that I reached knowledge world. Other than me, Lu Xingyang, Han Wennan, and the others who were at the same time as me in the metaphysics world weren't any younger than me. They reached knowledge world around the same time as me. In this way, in the corpse sect, not to mention other things, the power of the younger generation is far more terrifying than the Metaphysics Association. Even in the entire metaphysics world, I can't be sure if there are 16 people under the age of 24 who have reached the glory of knowledge realm. Although there were corpse puppets that reached glory of consciousness realm, this number still terrified me. Feeling bewildered, I casually asked Palace Head Lu, "What is it?" Hall Master Lu's face revealed regretful expression. He remained silent for a while, as if he was organizing his words. Then he said to me, "I just told you that you can now use your corpse puppet to advance to the purple zombie cave. Regarding the advancement of our sect, you can go to the surveillance palace to verify and report at any time. I also want you to go to the purple zombie cave as soon as possible. After all, the yin qi there is of a much higher quality than here. However, it just so happens that the large competition is happening. During the large competition, there is a rule that states that you will be a member of whichever hall you are in at the start of the competition. You can't be promoted for the time being. Only after the competition is over can you report and officially promote your position. The yin qi in the purple zombie cave wasn't attractive to me or the small zombie. Even the earth-grade yin qi in the flying zombie cave wasn't attractive. Only the yin qi in the corpse sex ancestors cave could restore the evil sacrificial spirit's body, so I didn't really care about it. However, Palace Head Lu's words were clearly inappropriate. It was normal to temporarily stop raising one's cultivation at the start of the large competition. However, the large competition was going to start 3 days later and not today. If I wanted to promote to the purple zombie cave, I could definitely go to the surveillance palace to verify and report. The reason why he said that was most likely because he wanted me to stay in the black zombie cave and wait for me to get some results in the large competition. Although I knew what he was thinking, I didn't mention it since I didn't care. I just smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. It's the same wherever I am." Palace Head Lu suddenly smiled. He pulled me aside and asked me about the sudden increase in the cultivation of the corpse puppet. I just gave him a few vague answers. After bidding farewell to Palace Head Lu, I returned to my cave residence and saw Jiang Dongcheng waiting for me at the entrance. He already knew that Lin Shui had accepted me as a disciple, so he didn't mention it. When he saw me, he said to me with a worried expression, "Senior Brother Wang, no, Martial Uncle, you have to save this little brother this time." I was a bit surprised and asked him what he meant. Jiang Dongcheng continued with a worried expression, "Martial Uncle Wang, your cultivation was low before, and you never participated in the large competition of the sex. You don't know that the rewards of the large competition of the sex are very generous. The disciples of the corpse sect are all vicious and merciless. In the large competition, it is common for people to lose their lives in order to win. I don't have any plans to take revenge, and I also don't want to fight for a rank in the large competition. I'm just afraid that I might meet a powerful person and end up losing my dog life." I felt even more baffled. It was normal for the disciples of the corpse sect to be vicious and merciless, but why was he so afraid? I asked him again, "Since you don't want to fight for a rank, why don't you just admit defeat when the time comes? Why are you so worried?" Jiang Dongcheng shook his head. Sometimes, admitting defeat isn't a good idea. Some people, in order to establish their might and scare their opponents, won't give them a chance to admit defeat and will directly kill them. I really didn't think that the people of the corpse sect would be vicious and merciless to this degree. I shook my head and asked him again, "Then how can I help you?" Jiang Dongcheng replied, "Originally, I wanted you to talk to Palace Master Lu. When the time comes and I see that the situation is not good and the opponent is going to be vicious again, you can ask Palace Master Lu to stop it. But now, you can enjoy the same treatment as martial uncle Shiryao. According to the rules of the sect, you also have the right to stop the acupoint ceiling disciple competition. When the time comes, you can help me stop the competition. It will be the same." The corpse sect really had a strict hierarchy. There was unexpectedly such a rule. Since that was the case, and Jiang Dongcheng was familiar with me, I nodded and agreed. Only then did he let out a long breath. After chatting with me for a while, he suddenly said to me, "That's right, Martial Uncle Wang, the grand competition is about to begin." I heard that Su Wei didn't seem to be able to find anything to upgrade his corpse puppet. These few days, he's been looking for trouble in the upper hall. He even stole many people's magic tools and other items to accumulate strength for the grand competition. I'm worried that he won't be in a good mood and will come to take revenge on you in the next few days. You should be careful." I frowned and doubtfully asked, "It can't be, right? I'm already Elder Lin's disciple. Would he dare to cause trouble for me?" Jiang Dongcheng sighed and said, "Martial Uncle Wang, you are Elder Lin's disciple, but Su Wei is the son of the 7th-ranked Elder Su. Others don't dare to provoke you, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't dare. What's more, if he comes to cause trouble, he will only openly challenge you. The sect allows this to happen. Last time, your strength suddenly increased, and he lost to you, but this time, he stole many magic tools from his fellow sect members. After cultivating in the purple zombie cave for a few days, his strength has increased by a lot. He can't be compared to before. I'm afraid." Without waiting for him to finish, I smiled and interrupted him. "You don't need to worry. If I can beat him once, I can beat him a second time. You don't need to worry about this matter. Go back and properly cultivate. Before the competition, increase your strength as much as you can." After saying that, Jiang Dongcheng seemed to want to say something, but seeing that I didn't move, he sighed and left. In the next 3 days, Lin Shui called me over again. However, compared to the cheap master, Palace Head Lu, her real master was much more stingy. She didn't give me anything, and only asked me about the situation of the corpse puppet. After knowing that the corpse puppet had reached the glorious consciousness realm, she didn't have any expression. She only looked at the evil sacrificial spirit a few times before nodding and letting me return. Chapter 419. Not long after I left, I met Jiang Dongcheng. He could be considered the person I was most familiar with in the corpse insect. I wanted to ask him to go with me to the temple, but he seemed to have something urgent to do. After saying goodbye to me, he went in the opposite direction. I was baffled. Jiang Dongcheng was also one of the participants of this competition. Why would he head in the opposite direction when the time set by Palace Head Lu was almost up? I pondered for a moment, then threw this trivial matter aside and continued to walk to the middle hall. By the time we reached the middle hall, most of the others had already arrived. Only Jiang Dongcheng wasn't there, but Hall Master Lu didn't seem to mind. He roughly nodded his head and then led us out of the middle hall. We headed towards the upper hall of the Black Zombie Cave. This year's competition would be held in the upper hall. When I arrived at the upper hall, I looked up and was slightly surprised. The size of the middle hall wasn't small, but the upper hall was several times larger than the middle hall. The entire area in front of the upper hall was cleared, and it was the size of 3 basketball courts. As it was only the preliminary round of the competition, the venue was very simple. 3 arenas were placed in a row in the empty space. Behind the arenas was a row of judges' seats. At that moment, there were already 3 judges seated there. The one sitting in the middle was Palace Master Lu. As for the other 2, one of them was an old acquaintance of mine. It was Lord whom I had met when I infiltrated the corpse sect. Judging from their seating arrangement, it was highly likely that these 3 were the 3 hall masters of the Black Zombie Cave. However, it was unknown when this lord who had become a hall master. Moreover, from his appearance, he seemed to be an upper hall master. As I stared at the rostrum, I walked up the stage with the other members of the Black Zombie Cave. We stood according to our status and waited for the drawing of lots. This competition is an internal competition of our Black Zombie Cave. The rules are very simple. 2 people will draw lots to fight, and the winner will enter the next round. Just as everyone stood still, Lord, whose voice came from the judging panel, I hope that everyone will take this competition seriously. Anyone who wins in the first round will have the opportunity to enter the upper hall to cultivate for 3 days. If you can enter the top 100, you can cultivate for 10 days and will be rewarded with a profoundine leaf. Of course, if there was a reward, there would also be a punishment. If someone clearly had a higher cultivation than his opponent, but was unable to win, then be prepared to be refined into a corpse puppet. Facing such an important competition, the hearts of the corpse sect disciples were already very serious. After hearing Palace Master, whose words, everyone's expressions became even more serious. Some people couldn't help but reveal a hint of fear. For the disciples of the corpse sect, there was no punishment more severe than being refined into a corpse puppet. I couldn't help but sigh at the ruthlessness of the corpse sect. At this moment, all of the disciples present had opened 5 acupoints or higher and were under the age of 24. In the outside world, these young talents could be considered outstanding talents, but here they were like pigs that were being raised. Their lives and deaths were decided by someone else's words. I wonder that corpse sect disciples be so ruthless. Have the young clan VE at corpse as I sect to belong in with the sect. Under the corpse sect to the clan. VE with the disciples in the corpse sect would to be under the disciples. This sect members in and the sect's disciples had the stage. Sect was the dragon to be the sect of the sect. Under the dynasty. In was. I let my imagination run wild as I followed the crowd out of the stage and down the stage. After we left the stage, the first round of the sect competition had officially begun. I looked around. What Jiang Dongqing had told me before was true. This was only the first match, but I could already see a disciple of the corpse sect being torn apart by his opponent's corpse puppet. The scene was extremely bloody and cruel. I subconsciously sighed. They were all pitiful people who had been oppressed by the corpse sect to cultivate with all their might. In the end, it was just to provide bodies for those old monsters who had cultivated for many years. It was absurd and sad. While I was thinking this in my heart, the other disciples of the corpse sect didn't have the same thoughts. Almost all of them were staring at the battle on the stage and cheering from time to time. The more brutal and bloody the scene was, the more it stimulated the tyranny in their hearts. Ah, isn't this martial Uncle Wang Lin? What's wrong? Are you scared by this kind of scene? At that moment, a strange voice came from my side. I turned my head and saw that Su Wei had unknowingly appeared next to me and was looking at me with a sinister expression. Jiang Dongqing had already warned me to be careful of his revenge. Although I didn't really care about it, if it wasn't necessary, I didn't want to have a deep grudge with someone whose father was a celestial master. I smiled at him and didn't say a word. I turned around and walked away. Who would have thought that Su Wei would stick to me like a piece of dog skin plaster? He followed me all the way while saying, "Martial Uncle Wong, don't be afraid. This is just the beginning of the competition. When Martial Uncle Wong goes on stage, the scene will be even more exciting than this." Hearing his words, I frowned and stopped walking. I turned my head to look at Su Wei as anger rose in my heart. This guy really didn't know what was good for him. Did he really want to die? I still didn't reply to him, but I started to think about whether or not I could get rid of this annoying guy. After thinking about it for a while, I realized that I really couldn't do anything to this guy. His father was a celestial master. Under absolute power, there was no way he could scheme. If I killed him, his father would find some clues sooner or later. Moreover, this was the corpse sect. At that time, I wouldn't even have a place to escape. Whatever, I could only deal with it when it came. In short, I wouldn't let him succeed. Coincidentally, Jiang Dongcheng appeared not far from me. I walked around Su Wei and walked towards Jiang Dongcheng. This time, Su Wei didn't follow me. He just smiled at me and walked in the opposite direction. When I arrived in front of Jiang Dongcheng, I didn't say anything. He worriedly asked me, "Martial Uncle Wong, why did Su Wei follow you? Does he have some kind of scheme?" I shook my head. "Don't worry about him. This is the sect's competition. The entire sect is concerned about it. What kind of scheme could he have?" But Jiang Dongcheng seemed to want to say something, but he hesitated. In the end, he didn't say anything. In the end, he told me not to forget what I had promised him and let me go. Not long after this small interlude, it was my turn to go on stage. Just as I was about to go on stage, Su Wei took the lead in the next stage. I was startled. Could it be that Su Wei could really manipulate the drawing of lots? Su Wei stood on the stage and gave me a strange smile. Following the referee's signal to start, Su Wei finally withdrew his head and waved his hand. His corpse puppet suddenly rushed out. With a tearing sound, Su Wei's undead hag actually tore off an arm from its opponent's undead hag in a single exchange. His opponent's cultivation level was around 8 sealed acupoints. He was smart. Seeing that his corpse puppet was seriously injured, he knew he couldn't win and took the initiative to surrender. It was a pity that his opponent was Su Wei, who didn't care about his surrender. A wind blade made of energy flew out of his hand. Together with his corpse puppet, he actually cut the opponent's body into several pieces. After killing him, Su Wei's expression didn't change at all. Instead, he turned around and laughed at me. Without a doubt, he was demonstrating his strength to me. I didn't pay attention to him and turned to call for the sacrificial evil spirit. Then I walked to the other stage. My opponent was already standing on the stage. He was a skinny youth. With a glance, I could see that his cultivation level was around 7 sealed acupoints. It wasn't high, but his corpse puppet wasn't ordinary. On the surface, it looked like a normal black zombie, but with a sweep of my perfect glory of knowledge, I found that his corpse puppet's cultivation was actually at the middle stage of glory of knowledge. Middle stage of glory of knowledge. According to what Hall Master Lu had said, this person should have already entered Purple Zombie Cave, but he was participating in Black Zombie Cave's competition. This was clearly illogical. What was even more illogical was that I didn't know this black-clothed youth, but as soon as we met, he stared at me. His expression was exactly the same as Su Wei's just now. I sighed slightly. I understood that this was probably Su Wei's method to deal with me. Sure enough, it was just as Jiang Dongcheng said. Su Wei would retaliate against me in public, but I didn't think that he would find outside help. It was probably because he lost to me before that he lost the confidence to defeat me. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.